Now I want to look at some examples. The first thing I need to do is, since all my examples use 4 separate table spaces, I need to go and create those table spaces. I need to connect as my DBA user, my sys user, and simply create those 4 table spaces. And there I've created 4 table spaces for 4 separate partitions I'm going to use in my examples. Now I'm going to create a range partition, more or less the same as the example I showed you already, except I'm defining the columns and I'm splitting up the show table based on range. So I create the table, I assign the partitions, and I cannot create the partition yet because I have to go and reconnect back into my concepts user because I connected to sys. So now I create my partition, and there's my partition table of my shows based on date ranges. What I can also do is to create a global index on all partitions by simply creating an index on the table which is partitioned. Additionally, I can also create local indexes specifying local indexes for each of the individual partitions as opposed to just creating an index on the table. Now obviously, since this index already exists, I've just created it, I have to drop it first, and then I go and create local indexes. Local indexes are more effective than global indexes, mainly because of changes to partitions and changes to data. Global indexes are much more difficult to manage, and then I can actually insert rows from the show table and put them into the shows by range partitioned table. Now let's go and look at the original table under an explain plan and search for a range based on the show date. Note I'm not using the partition table. And here I have a cost of 4 to fully access the table. Now this is interesting because I have a materialized view in there that it's decided to use because I have query rewrite set to on. First of all, let's drop my materialized views. Let's simply select table name from user tables. And yeah, it does actually show the materialized views, which is very interesting. Drop materialized view, and we want to drop shows because we actually don't want it to use these materialized views. We want to show differences between using partitions and not using partitions. I could simply switch off the materialized views parameter, but I'd rather actually clean up. So now let's go and run the explain plan, and now we see we've actually accessed the table show in full. Now let's go and look at the first partition. I'm trying to demonstrate partition pruning. This date range is equivalent to the first partition on the partition by range table I created on the date. So it does show me a difference in cost. It also shows me that I only read the first partition in the shows by range table. I can't see the rest of this column because it's a little bit too wide for the screen. I'm going to quickly change my explain plan script. So I'm going to go into my temp directory, I'm going to find my explain plan script, and I'm going to change the format of this query column, let's say to 54, and I don't need sorting at the moment, so I'm just going to comment this out. So let's save that, and let's go back to my script, copy and paste this, go back into here, and I get more information. As you can see, the cost is reduced by reading. Yes, it is reduced. The number of rows is increased, which is rather strange. All I'm trying to show you is that it's reading this partition table and it's actually reading only the first partition. This means from first partition to last partition. If I go back into my explain plan query, you can see the columns on the end here are actually partition start and partition stop. So, going back to my script again, I could partition prune by applying the query to only the third partition. Again, 3, 3. Go back to the script again. We could actually do something else, and let's say, what was the first partition? Less than 200301. Let's go and read more than a single partition. So I'll change this query, and as you can see, I've actually read partitions 2 and 3 to find the results for that query. I'm not going to go and examine the details of exactly what we did there, but basically we went from the year 2000 to the year, let's have a look, 2001. That's 2 years, 2 partitions. This one read partition 1 because it was actually less than 2000, which is 1999.